Youth. Youth is not a time of life. It is a state of mind. It is not a matter of rosy cheeks, red lips, and supple knees. It is a matter of the will, a quality of the imagination, a vigor of the emotions. It is the freshness of the deep springs of life. Youth means a temperamental predominance of courage over timidity, of the appetite for adventure over the love of ease. This often exists in the man of 60 more than a boy of 20. Nobody grows old merely by a number of years. We grow old by deserting our ideals. Years may wrinkle the skin, but to give up enthusiasm wrinkles the soul. Worry, fear, self-distrust bows the heart and turns the spirit back to dust. Whether 60 or 16, there is in every human being's heart the lure of wonder, the unfailing childlike appetite for what's next, and the joy of the game of living. In the center of your heart and my heart, there is a wireless station. So long as it receives messages of beauty, hope, cheer, courage, and power from man and from the infinite, so long are you young. When the aerials are down, and your spirit is covered with snows of cynicism and the ice of pessimism, then you are grown old, even at 20. But as long as your aerials are up to catch waves of optimism, there is hope you may die young at 80. "3 Days to See." All of us have read thrilling stories in which the hero had only a limited and specified time to live. Sometimes it was as long as a year, sometimes as short as 24 hours. But always we were interested in discovering just how the doomed man chose to spend his last days or his last hours. I speak, of course, of free men who have a choice, not condemned criminals whose sphere of activities is strictly delimited. Such stories set us thinking, wondering what we should do under similar circumstances. What events, what experiences, what associations should we crowd into those last hours as mortal beings? What happiness should we find in reviewing the past? What regrets? Sometimes I have thought it would be an excellent rule to live each day as if we should die tomorrow. Such an attitude would emphasize sharply the values of life. We should live each day with gentleness, vigor, and a keenness of appreciation which are often lost when time stretches before us in the constant panorama of more days and months and years to come. There are those, of course, who would adopt the Epicurean model of eat, drink, and be merry. But most people would be chastened by the certainty of impending death. In stories, the doomed hero is usually saved at the last minute by some stroke of fortune, but almost always his sense of values is changed. He becomes more appreciative of the meaning of life and its permanent spiritual values. It has often been noted that those who live or have lived in the shadow of death bring a mellow sweetness to everything they do. Most of us, however, take life for granted. We know that one day we must die, but usually we picture that day as far in the future. When we are in buoyant health, death is all but unimaginable. We seldom think of it. The days stretch out in an endless vista. So we go about our petty tasks, hardly aware of our listless attitude toward life. The same lethargy, I'm afraid, characterizes the use of all our faculties and senses. Only the deaf appreciate hearing. Only the blind realize the manifold blessings that lie in sight. Particularly does this observation apply to those who have lost sight and hearing in adult life. But those who have never suffered impairment of sight or hearing seldom make the fullest use of these blessed faculties. Their eyes and ears taking all sights and sounds hazily, without concentration and with little appreciation. It is the same old story of not being grateful for what we have until we lose it, of not being conscious of health until we are ill. I have often thought it would be a blessing if each human being were stricken blind and deaf for a few days at some time during his early adult life. Darkness would make him more appreciative of sight. Silence would teach him the joys of sound. Companionship of books. A man may usually be known by the books he reads as well as by the company he keeps, for there is a companionship of books as well as of men, and one should always live in the best company, whether it be of books or of men. A good book may be among the best of friends. It is the same today that it always was, and it will never change. It is the most patient and cheerful of companions. It does not turn its back upon us in times of adversity or distress. It always receives us with the same kindness, amusing and instructing us in youth, and comforting and consoling us in age. Men often discover the affinity to each other by the mutual love they have for a book, just as two persons sometimes discover a friend by the admiration which both entertain for a third. There is an old proverb, "Love me, love my dog," but there is more wisdom in this, "Love me, love my book." The book is a truer and higher bond of union. Men can think, feel, and sympathize with each other through their favorite author. They live in him together and he in them. A good book is often the best urn of a life enshrining the best that life could think out. For the world of a man's life is, for the most part, but the world of his thoughts. Thus, the best books are treasures of good words, the golden thoughts, which, remembered and cherished, become our constant companions and comforters. Books possess an essence of immortality. They are by far the most lasting products of human effort. Temples and statues decay, but books survive. Time is of no account with great thoughts, which are as fresh today as when they first passed through their authors' minds ages ago. What was then said and thought still speaks to us as vividly as ever from the printed page. The only effect of time has been to sift out the bad products, for nothing in literature can long survive but what is really good. Books introduce us into the best society. They bring us into the presence of the greatest minds that have ever lived. We hear what they said and did. We see them as if they were really alive. We sympathize with them, enjoy with them, grieve with them. Their experience becomes ours, and we feel as if we were, in a measure, actors with them in the scenes which they describe. The great and good do not die even in this world. Embalmed in books, their spirits walk abroad. The book is a living voice. It is an intellect to which one still listens. If I rest, I rust. The significant inscription found on an old key, "If I rest, I rust," would be an excellent model for those who are afflicted with the slightest bit of idleness. Even the most industrious person might adopt it with advantage to serve as a reminder that if one allows his faculties to rest, Like the iron in the unused key, they will soon show signs of rust and ultimately cannot do the work required of them. Those who would attain the heights reached and kept by great men must keep their faculties polished by constant use, so that they may unlock the doors of knowledge, the gates that guard the entrances to the professions, to science, art, literature, agriculture, every department of human endeavor. Industry keeps bright the key that opens the treasure of achievement. If Hugh Miller, after toiling all day in a quarry, had devoted his evenings to rest and recreation, he would never have become a famous geologist. The celebrated mathematician Edmund Stone would never have published a mathematical dictionary, never have found the key to science of mathematics, if he had given his spare moments to idleness. Had the little Scotch lad Ferguson allowed the busy brain to go to sleep while he tended sheep on the hillside, instead of calculating the position of the stars by a string of beads, he would never have become a famous astronomer. Labor vanquishes all, not inconstant, spasmodic, or ill-directed labor, but faithful, unremitting, daily effort toward a well-directed purpose. Just as truly as eternal vigilance is the price of liberty, so is eternal industry the price of noble and enduring success. Ambition. It is not difficult to imagine a world short of ambition. It would probably be a kinder world, without demands, without aberrations, without disappointments. People would have time for reflection. Such work as they did would not be for themselves, but for the collectivity. Competition would never enter in. Conflict would be eliminated. Tension become a thing of the past. The stress of creation would be at an end. Art would no longer be troubling, but purely celebratory in its functions. Longevity would be increased, for fewer people would die of heart attack or stroke caused by tumultuous endeavor. Anxiety would be extinct. Time would stretch on and on with ambition long departed from the human heart. Ah, how unrelievedly boring life would be! There is a strong view that holds that success is a myth and ambition therefore a sham. Does this mean that success does not really exist? That achievement is at bottom empty? That the efforts of men and women are of no significance alongside the force of movements and events? Now, not all success obviously is worth esteeming, nor or ambition worth cultivating. Which are and which are not is something one soon enough learns on one's own. But even the most cynical secretly admit that success exists, that achievement counts for a great deal, and that the true myth is that the actions of men and women are useless. To believe otherwise is to take on a point of view that is likely to be deranging. It is, in its implications, to remove all motives for competence, interest in attainment, and regard for posterity. We do not choose to be born. We do not choose our parents. We do not choose our historical epoch, the country of our birth, or the immediate circumstances of our upbringing. We do not, most of us, choose to die, nor do we choose the time or conditions of our death. But within all this realm of choicelessness, we do choose how we shall live, courageously or in cowardice, honorably or dishonorably, with purpose or in drift. We decide what is important and what is trivial in life. We decide that what makes us significant is either what we do or what we refuse to do. But no matter how indifferent the universe may be to our choices and decisions, these choices and decisions are ours to make. We decide, we choose, and as we decide and choose, so are our lives formed. In the end, forming our own destiny is what ambition is about. What I have lived for. 3 passions, simple but overwhelmingly strong, have governed my life: the longing for love, the search for knowledge, and unbearable pity for the suffering of mankind. These passions, like great winds, have blown me hither and thither in a wayward course over a deep ocean of anguish, reaching to the very verge of despair. I have sought love first because it brings ecstasy so great that I would often have sacrificed all the rest of my life for a few hours for this joy. I have sought it next because it relieves loneliness, that terrible loneliness in which one shivering consciousness looks over the rim of the world into the cold, unfathomable, lifeless abyss. I have sought it finally because in the union of love I have seen, in a mystic miniature, the prefiguring vision of the heaven that saints and poets have imagined. This is what I sought, and though it might seem too good for human life, this is what at last I have found. With equal passion I have sought knowledge. I have wished to understand the hearts of men. I have wished to know why the stars shine. And I have tried to apprehend the Pythagorean power by which number holds sway above the flux. A little of this, but not much, I have achieved. Love and knowledge, so far as they were possible, led upward toward the heavens. But always pity brought me back to earth. Echoes of cries of pain reverberate in my heart. Children in famine, victims tortured by oppressors, helpless old people a hatred burden to their sons, and the whole world of loneliness, poverty, and pain make a mockery of what human life should be. I long to alleviate the evil, but I cannot, and I too suffer. This has been my life. I have found it worth living, and would gladly live it again if the chance were offered me. When love beckons you. When love beckons to you, follow him, though his ways are hard and steep. And when his wings enfold you, yield to him, though the sword hidden among his pinions may wound you. And when he speaks to you, believe in him, though his voice may shatter your dreams as the north wind lays waste the garden. For even as love crowns you, so shall he crucify you. Even as he is for your growth, so is he for your pruning. Even as he ascends to your height and caresses your tenderest branches that quiver in the sun, so shall he descend to your roots and shake them in their clinging to the earth. But if, in your fear, you would seek only love's peace and love's pleasure, then it is better for you that you cover your nakedness and pass out of love's threshing floor into the seasonless world where you shall laugh, but not all of your laughter, and weep, but not all of your tears. Love gives naught but itself, and takes naught but from itself. Love possesses not, nor would it be possessed, for love is sufficient unto love. Love has no other desire but to fulfill itself. But if you love and must have desires, let these be your desires: to melt and be like a running brook that sings its melody to the night, to know the pain of too much tenderness, to be wounded by your own understanding of love, and to bleed willingly and joyfully. to wake at dawn with a winged heart and give thanks for another day of loving, to rest at the noon hour and meditate love's ecstasy, to return home at eventide with gratitude, and then to sleep with a prayer for the beloved in your heart and a song of praise upon your lips. The road to success. It is well that young men should begin at the beginning and occupy the most subordinate positions. Many of the leading businessmen of Pittsburgh had a serious responsibility thrust upon them at the very threshold of their career. They were introduced to the broom and spent the first hours of their business lives sweeping out the office. I notice we have janitors and janitresses now in offices, and our young men unfortunately miss that salutary branch of a business education. But if by chance the professional sweeper is absent in the morning, the boy who has the genius for the future partner in him will not hesitate to try his hand at the broom. It does not hurt the newest comer to sweep out the office if necessary. I was one of those sweepers myself. Assuming that you have all obtained employment and are fairly started, my advice to you is aim high. I would not give a fig for the young man who does not already see himself the partner or the head of an important firm. Do not rest content for a moment in your thoughts as head clerk or foreman or general manager in any concern, no matter how extensive. Say to yourself, my place is at the top. Be king in your dreams. And here is the prime condition of success, the great secret. Concentrate your energy, thought, and capital exclusively upon the business in which you are engaged. Having begun in one line, resolve to fight it out on that line, to lead in it, adopt every improvement, have the best machinery, and know the most about it. The concerns which fail are those which have scattered their capital, which means that they have scattered their brains also. They have investments in this or that or the other, here, there, and everywhere. Don't put all your eggs in one basket. It's all wrong. I tell you to put all your eggs in one basket and then watch that basket. Look round you and take notice. Men who do that not often fail. It is easy to watch and carry the one basket. It is trying to carry too many baskets that breaks most eggs in this country. He who carries 3 baskets must put one on his head, which is apt to tumble and trip him up. One fault of the American businessman is lack of concentration. To summarize what I have said, aim for the highest. Never enter a barroom. Do not touch liquor, or if at all, only at meals. Never speculate. Never endorse beyond your surplus cash fund. Make the firm's interest yours. Break orders always to save owners. Concentrate. Put all your eggs in one basket and watch that basket. Expenditure always within revenue. Lastly, be not impatient, for as Emerson says, no one can cheat you out of ultimate success but yourselves. On meeting the celebrated. I have always wondered at the passion many people have to meet the celebrated. The prestige you acquire by being able to tell your friends that you know famous men proves only that you are yourself of small account. The celebrated develop a technique to deal with the persons they come across. They show the world a mask, often an impressive one, but take care to conceal their real selves. They play the part that is expected from them and with practice learn to play it very well. But you are stupid if you think that this public performance of theirs corresponds with the man within. I have been deeply attached to a few people, but I have been interested in men in general, not for their own sakes, but for the sake of my work. I have not, as Kant enjoyed, regarded each man as an end in himself, but as material that might be useful to me as a writer. I have been more concerned with the obscure than with the famous. They are more often themselves. They have had no need to create a figure to protect themselves from the world or to impress it. Their idiosyncrasies have had more chance to develop in the limited circle of their activity, and since they have never been in the public eye, it has never occurred to them that they have anything to conceal. They display their oddities because it has never struck them that they are odd. And after all, it is with the common run of man that we writers have to deal. Kings, dictators, commercial magnates are, from our point of view, very unsatisfactory. To write about them is a venture that has often tempted writers, but the failure that has attended their efforts shows that such beings are too exceptional to form a proper ground for a work of art. They cannot be made real. The ordinary is the writer's richer field. Its unexpectedness, its singularity, its infinite variety afford unending material. The great man is too often all of a piece. It is the little man that is a bundle of contradictory elements. He is inexhaustible. You never come to the end of the surprises he has in store for you. For my part, I would much sooner spend a month on a desert island with a veterinary surgeon than with a prime minister. The 50% theory of life. I believe in the 50% theory. Half the time things are better than normal, the other half they are worse. I believe life is a pendulum swing. It takes time and experience to understand what normal is, and that gives me the perspective to deal with the surprises of the future. Let's benchmark the parameters. Yes, I will die. I've dealt with the deaths of both parents, a best friend, a beloved boss, and cherished pets. Some of these deaths have been violent before my eyes, or slow and agonizing. Bad stuff, and it belongs at the bottom of the scale. Then there are those high points. Romance and marriage to the right person, having a child and doing those dad things like coaching my son's baseball team, paddling around the creek in the boat while he's swimming with the dogs, discovering his compassion so deep it manifests even in his kindness to snails. His imagination so vivid he builds a spaceship from a scattered pile of Legos. But there is a vast meadow of life in the middle, where the bad and the good flip-flop acrobatically. This is what convinces me to believe in the 50% theory. One spring, I planted corn too early in the bottomland, so flood-prone that neighbors laughed. I felt chagrined at the wasted effort. Summer turned brutal, the worst heat wave and drought in my lifetime. The air conditioner died. The well went dry. The marriage ended. The job lost. The money gone. I was living lyrics from a country tune, music I loathed. Only a surging Kansas City Royals team buoyed my spirits. Looking back on that horrible summer, I soon understood that all succeeding good things merely offset the bad. Worse than normal wouldn't last long. I'm old and savor the halcyon times. They reinvigorate me for the next nasty surprise and offer assurance that I can thrive. The 50% theory even helps me see hope beyond my Royals' recent slump, a field of struggling rookies sown so that some year soon we can reap an October harvest. For that one blistering summer, the ground moisture was just right. Planting early allowed pollination before heat withered the tops, and the lack of rain spared the standing corn from floods. That winter, my crib overflowed with corn, fat, healthy 3-to-a-stalk ears filled with kernels from heel to tip, while my neighbors' fields yielded only brown, empty husks. Although plantings past may have fallen below the 50% expectation, and they probably will again in the future, I am still sustained by the crop that flourishes during the drought. What is your recovery rate? What is your recovery rate? How long does it take you to recover from actions and behaviors that upset you? Minutes? Hours? Days? Weeks? The longer it takes you to recover, the more influence that incident has on your actions, and the less able you are to perform to your personal best. In a nutshell, the longer it takes you to recover, the weaker you are and the poorer your performance. You are well aware that you need to exercise to keep the body fit, and no doubt accept that a reasonable measure of health is the speed in which your heart and respiratory system recovers after exercise. Likewise, the faster you let go of an issue that upsets you, the faster you return to an equilibrium, the healthier you will be. The best example of this behavior is found with professional sports people. They know that the faster they can forget an incident or missed opportunity and get on with the game, the better their performance. In fact, most measure the time it takes them to overcome and forget an incident in a game, and most reckon a recovery rate of 30 seconds is too long. Imagine yourself to be an actor in a play on the stage. Your aim is to play your part to the best of your ability. You have been given a script, and at the end of each sentence is a full stop. Each time you get to the end of the sentence, you start a new one, and although the next sentence is related to the last, it is not affected by it. Your job is to deliver each sentence to the best of your ability. Don't live your life in the past. Learn to live in the present, to overcome the past. Stop the past from influencing your daily life. Don't allow thoughts of the past to reduce your personal best. Stop the past from interfering with your life. Learn to recover quickly. Remember, Rome wasn't built in a day. Reflect on your recovery rate each day. Every day before you go to bed, look at your progress. Don't lie in bed saying to you, "I did that wrong. I should have done better there." No, look at your day and note when you made an effort to place a full stop after an incident. This is a success. You are taking control of your life. Remember, this is a step-by-step process. This is not a makeover. You're undertaking real change here. Your aim: reduce the time spent in recovery. The way forward: live in the present, not in the precedent. Clear your mental space. Think about the last time you felt a negative emotion like stress, anger, or frustration. What was going through your mind as you were going through that negativity? Was your mind cluttered with thoughts? Or was it paralyzed, unable to think? The next time you find yourself in the middle of a very stressful time, or you feel angry or frustrated, stop. Yes, that's right, stop. Whatever you are doing, stop and sit for 1 minute. While you are sitting there, completely immerse yourself in the negative emotion. Allow that emotion to consume you. Allow yourself 1 minute to truly feel that emotion. Don't cheat yourself here. Take the entire minute, but only 1 minute, to do nothing else but feel that emotion. When the minute is over, ask yourself, am I willing to keep holding on to this negative emotion as I go through the rest of the day? Once you've allowed yourself to be totally immersed in the emotion and really feel it, you will be surprised to find that the emotion clears rather quickly. If you feel you need to hold on to the emotion for a little longer, that is okay. Allow yourself another minute to feel the emotion. When you feel you've had enough of the emotion, ask yourself if you're willing to carry that negativity with you for the rest of the day. If not, take a deep breath. As you exhale, release all that negativity with your breath. This exercise seems simple, almost too simple, but it is very effective. By allowing that negative emotion the space to be truly felt, you are dealing with the emotion rather than stuffing it down and trying not to feel it. You are actually taking away the power of the emotion by giving it the space and attention it needs. When you immerse yourself in emotion and realize that it is only emotion, it loses its control. You can clear your head and proceed with your task. Try it. Next time you are in the middle of a negative emotion, give yourself the space to feel the emotion and see what happens. Keep a piece of paper with you that says the following: stop. Immerse for 1 minute. Do I want to keep this negativity? Breathe deep. Exhale. Release. Move on. This will remind you of the steps to the process. Remember, take the time you need to really immerse yourself in the emotion. Then, when you feel you've felt it enough, release it. Really let go of it. You will be surprised at how quickly you can move on from a negative situation and get to what you really want to do. Be happy. The days that make us happy make us wise. John Masefield. When I first read this line by England's poet laureate, it startled me. What did Masefield mean? Without thinking about it much, I had always assumed that the opposite was true. But his sober assurance was arresting. I could not forget it. Finally, I seemed to grasp his meaning and realize that here was a profound observation. The wisdom that happiness makes possible lies in clear perception, not fogged by anxiety, nor dimmed by despair and boredom, and without the blind spots caused by fear. Active happiness, not mere satisfaction or contentment, often comes suddenly like an April shower or the unfolding of a bud. Then you discover what kind of wisdom has accompanied it. The grass is greener, birds' songs are sweeter, the shortcomings of your friends are more understandable and more forgivable. Happiness is like a pair of eyeglasses correcting your spiritual vision. Nor are the insights of happiness limited to what is near around you. Unhappy, with your thoughts turned in upon your emotional woes, your vision is cut short as though by a wall. Happy, the wall crumbles. The long vista is there for the seeing. The ground at your feet, the world about you, people, thoughts, emotions, pressures are now fitted into the larger scene. Everything assumes a fairer proportion. And here is the beginning of wisdom. the goodness of life. Though there is much to be concerned about, there is far, far more for which to be thankful. Though life's goodness can at times be overshadowed, it is never outweighed. For every single act that is senselessly destructive, there are thousands more, small, quiet acts of love, kindness, and compassion. For every person who seeks to hurt, there are many, many more who devote their lives to helping and to healing. There is goodness to life that cannot be denied. In the most magnificent vistas and in the smallest details, look closely, for that goodness always comes shining through. There is no limit to the goodness of life. It grows more abundant with each new encounter. The more you experience and appreciate the goodness of life, the more there is to be lived. Even when the cold winds blow and the world seems to be covered in foggy shadows, the goodness of life lives on. Open your eyes, open your heart, and you will see that goodness is everywhere. Though the goodness of life seems at times to suffer setbacks, it always endures. For in the darkest moment, it becomes vividly clear that life is a priceless treasure. And so the goodness of life is made even stronger by the very things that would oppose it. Time and time again, when you feared it was gone forever, you found that the goodness of life was really only a moment away. Around the next corner, inside every moment, the goodness of life is there to surprise and delight you. Take a moment to let the goodness of life touch your spirit and calm your thoughts. Then share your good fortune with another, for the goodness of life grows more and more magnificent each time it is given away. Though the problems constantly scream for attention and the conflicts appear to rage ever stronger, the goodness of life grows stronger still, quietly, peacefully, with more purpose and meaning than ever before. Facing the enemies within. We are not born with courage, but neither are we born with fear. Maybe some of our fears are brought on by your own experiences, by what someone has told you, by what you've read in the papers. Some fears are valid, like walking alone in a bad part of town at 2 o'clock in the morning. But once you learn to avoid that situation, you won't need to live in fear of it. Fears, even the most basic ones, can totally destroy our ambitions. Fear can destroy fortunes. Fear can destroy relationships. Fear, if left unchecked, can destroy our lives. Fear is one of the many enemies lurking inside us. Let me tell you about 5 of the other enemies we face from within. The first enemy that you've got to destroy before it destroys you is indifference. What a tragic disease this is. Hold on, let it slide. I'll just drift along. Here's one problem with drifting. You can't drift your way to the top of the mountain. The second enemy we face is indecision. Indecision is the thief of opportunity and enterprise. It will steal your chances for a better future. Take a sword to this enemy. The third enemy inside is doubt. Sure, there's room for healthy skepticism. You can't believe everything, but you also can't let doubt take over. Many people doubt the past, doubt the future, doubt each other, doubt the government, doubt the possibilities, and doubt the opportunities. Worst of all, they doubt themselves. I'm telling you, doubt will destroy your life and your chances of success. It will empty both your bank account and your heart. Doubt is an enemy. Go after it. Get rid of it. The fourth enemy within is worry. We've all got to worry some. Just don't let it conquer you. Instead, let it alarm you. Worry can be useful. If you step off the curb in New York City and a taxi is coming, you've got to worry. But you can't let worry loose like a mad dog that drives you into a small corner. Here's what you've got to do with your worries. Drive them into a small corner. Whatever is out to get you, you've got to get it. Whatever is pushing on you, you've got to push back. The fifth interior enemy is overcaution. It is the timid approach to life. Timidity is not a virtue, it's an illness. If you let it go, it'll conquer you. Timid people don't get promoted. They don't advance and grow and become powerful in the marketplace. You've got to avoid overcaution. Do battle with the enemy. Do battle with your fears. Build your courage to fight what's holding you back, what's keeping you from your goals and dreams. Be courageous in your life and in your pursuit of the things you want and the person you want to become. Abundance is a lifestyle. Abundance is a lifestyle, a way of living your life. It isn't something you buy now and then or pull down from the cupboard, dust off and use once or twice and then return to the cupboard. Abundance is a philosophy. It appears in your physiology, your value system, and carries its own set of beliefs. You walk with it, sleep with it, bath with it, feel with it, and need to maintain and take care of it as well. Abundance doesn't always require money. Many people live with all that money can buy, yet live empty inside. Abundance begins inside with some main self-ingredients like love, care, kindness, and gentleness, thoughtfulness, and compassion. Abundance is a state of being. It radiates outward. It shines like the sun among the many moons in the world. Being from the brightness of abundance doesn't allow the darkness to appear or be in the path unless a choice to allow it to. The true state of abundance doesn't have room for lies or games normally played. The space is too full of abundance. This may be a challenge because we still need to shine for others to see. Abundance is seeing people for their gifts and not what they lack or could be. Seeing all things for their gifts and not what they lack. Start by knowing what your abundances are. Fill that space with you and be fully present from that state of being. Your profession of choice is telling you this already. Examples. Coaches have an abundance of knowing and possibilities. That is their gift. Consultants and customer service professionals have the abundance of success, practicality in common. Administrative assistants and virtual assistants have an abundance of coordination and time management. Abundance is all around you and all within. See what it is. Love yourself for what it is, not what you are missing, or what that can be better, but for what it is at this present moment. Be in a state of abundance of what you already have. I guarantee they are there. It always is buried, but there. Breathe them in as if they are the air you breathe because they are yours. Let go of anything that isn't abundant for the time being. Name the shoe boxes in your closet with your gifts of abundance. Pull from them every morning if needed. Know they are there. Learning to trust in your own abundance is required. When you begin to be within your own space of abundance, whatever you need will appear whenever you need it. That's just the way the higher powers set this universe up to work. Trust the universal energy. The knowing of it all will humble you to its power, yet let the brightness of you shine everywhere it needs to. Just by being from a state of abundance, it is being you. Human life a poem. I think that from a biological standpoint, human life almost reads like a poem. It has its own rhythm and beat, its internal cycles of growth and decay. It begins with innocent childhood, followed by awkward adolescence, trying awkwardly to adapt itself to mature society, with its young passions and follies, its ideals and ambitions. Then it reaches a manhood of intense activities, profiting from experience and learning more about society and human nature. At middle age, there is a slight easing of tension, a mellowing of character, like the ripening of fruit or the mellowing of good wine, and the gradual acquiring of a more tolerant, more cynical, and at the same time a kindlier view of life. Then, in the sunset of our life, the endocrine glands decrease their activity, and if we have a true philosophy of old age and have ordered our life pattern according to it, it is for us the age of peace and security and leisure and contentment. Finally, life flickers out and one goes into eternal sleep, never to wake up again. One should be able to sense the beauty of this rhythm of life, to appreciate, as we do in grand symphonies, its main theme, its strains of conflict, and the final resolution. The movements of these cycles are very much the same in a normal life, but the music must be provided by the individual himself. In some souls, the discordant note becomes harsher and harsher, and finally overwhelms or submerges the main melody. Sometimes, the discordant note gains so much power that the music can no longer go on, and the individual shoots himself with a pistol or jump into a river. But that is because his original leitmotif has been hopelessly overshadowed through the lack of a good self-education. Otherwise, the normal human life runs to its normal end in a kind of dignified movement and procession. There are sometimes in many of us too many staccatos or impetuosos, and because the tempo is wrong, the music is not pleasing to the ear. We might have more of the grand rhythm and majestic tempo of the Ganges flowing slowly and eternally into the sea. No one can say that a life with childhood, manhood, and old age is not a beautiful arrangement. The day has its morning, noon, and sunset, and the year has its seasons, and it is good that it is so. There is no good or bad in life except what is good according to its own season. And if we take this biological view of life and try to live according to the seasons, no one but a conceited fool or impossible idealist can deny that human life can be lived like a poem. Shakespeare has expressed this idea more graphically in his passage about the 7 stages of life, and a good many Chinese writers have said about the same thing. It is curious that Shakespeare was never very religious or very much concerned with religion. I think this was his greatness. He took human life largely as it was and intruded himself as little upon the general scheme of things as he did upon the characters of his plays. Shakespeare was like nature itself, and that is the greatest compliment we can pay to a writer or thinker. He merely lived, observed life, and went away. Solitude. I find it wholesome to be alone the greater part of the time. To be in company, even with the best, is soon wearisome and dissipating. I love to be alone. I never found the companion that was so companionable as solitude. We are, for the most part, more lonely when we go abroad among men than when we stay in our chambers. A man thinking or working is always alone. Let him be where he will. Solitude is not measured by the miles of space that intervene between a man and his fellows. The really diligent student in one of the crowded hives of Cambridge College is as solitary as a dervish in the desert. The farmer can work alone in the field or the woods all day, hoeing or chopping, and not feel lonesome, because he is employed. But when he comes home at night, he cannot sit down in a room alone at the mercy of his thoughts, but must be where he can see the folks and recreate, and as he thinks, remunerate himself for his day's solitude. And hence he wonders how the student can sit alone in the house all night and most of the day without ennui and the blues. But he does not realize that the student, though in the house, is still at work in his field and chopping in his woods as the farmer in his, and in turn seeks the same recreation and society that the latter does, though it may be a more condensed form of it. Society is commonly too cheap. We meet at very short intervals, not having had time to acquire any new value for each other. We meet at meals 3 times a day and give each other a new taste of that old musty cheese that we are. We have had to agree on a certain set of rules called etiquette and politeness to make this frequent meeting tolerable, and that we need not come to open war. We meet at the post office and at the sociable and about the fireside every night. We live thick and are in each other's way and stumble over one another, and I think that we thus lose some respect for one another. Certainly less frequency would suffice for all important and hearty communications. Consider the girls in the factory, never alone, hardly in their dreams. It would be better if there were but one inhabitant to a square mile, as where I live. The value of a man is not in his skin that we should touch him. I have a great deal of company in my house, especially in the morning when nobody calls. Let me suggest a few comparisons that someone may convey an idea of my situation. I am no more lonely than a loon in the pond that laughs so loud, or than Walden Pond itself. What company has that lonely lake, I pray? And yet it has not the blue devils, but the blue angels in it, in the azure tint of its waters. The sun is alone, except in thick weather, when there sometimes appear to be 2, but one is a mock sun. God is alone, but the devil, he is far from being alone. He sees a great deal of company. He is legion. I am no more lonely than a single molly or a dandelion in a pasture, or a bean leaf, or sorrel, or a horsefly, or a bumblebee. I am no more lonely than a millbrook, or a weathercock, or the north star, or the south wind, or an April shower, or a January thaw, or the first spider in a new house. Giving life meaning. Have you thought about what you want people to say about you after you are gone? Can you hear the voices saying, "He was a great man," or "She really will be missed"? What else do they say? One of the strangest phenomena of life is to engage in a work that will last long after death. Isn't that a lot like investing all your money so that future generations can bear interest on it? Perhaps, yet if you look deep in your own heart, you'll find something drives you to make this kind of contribution. Something drives every human being to find a purpose that lives on after death. Do you hope to memorialize your name? Have a name that is whispered with reverent awe? Do you hope to have your face carved upon 50 feet of granite rock? Is the answer really that simple? Is the purpose of lifetime contribution an ego-driven desire for a mortal being to have an immortal name, Or is it something more? A child alive today will die tomorrow. A baby that had the potential to be the next Einstein will die from complications at birth. The circumstances of life are not set in stone. We are not all meant to live life through to old age. We've grown to perceive life as a full cycle with a certain number of years in between. If all of those years aren't lived out, it's a tragedy. A tragedy because a human's potential was never realized. A tragedy because a spark was snuffed out before it ever became a flame. By virtue of inhabiting a body, we accept these risks. We expose our mortal flesh to the laws of the physical environment around us. The trade-off isn't so bad when you think about it. The problem comes when we construct mortal fantasies of what life should be like. When life doesn't conform to our fantasy, we grow upset, frustrated, or depressed. We are alive. Let us live. We have the ability to experience. Let us experience. We have the ability to learn. Let us learn. The meaning of life can be grasped in a moment so brief it often evades our perception. What meaning stands behind the dramatic unfolding of life? What single truth can we grasp and hang on to for dear life when all other truths around us seem to fade with time? These moments are strung together in a series we call events. These events are strung together in a series we call life. When we seize the moment and bend it according to our will, a will driven by the Spirit deep inside us, then we have discovered the meaning of life, a meaning for us that shall go on long after we depart this earth. Relish the moment. Tucked away in our subconsciousness is an idyllic vision. We see ourselves on a long trip that spans the continent. We are traveling by train. Out the windows, we drink in the passing scene of cars on nearby highways, of children waving at a crossing, of cattle grazing on a distant hillside, of smoke pouring from a power plant, of row upon row of corn and wheat, of flatlands and valleys, of mountains and rolling hillsides, of city skylines and village halls. But uppermost in our minds is the final destination. On a certain day, at a certain hour, we will pull into the station. Bands will be playing and flags waving. Once we get there, so many wonderful dreams will come true, and the pieces of our lives will fit together like a completed jigsaw puzzle. How restlessly we pace the aisles, damning the minutes for loitering, waiting for the station. When we reach the station, that will be it, we cry. When I'm 18, when I buy a new 450 SL Mercedes-Benz, when I put the last kid through college, when I have paid off the mortgage, when I get a promotion, when I reach the age of retirement, I shall live happily ever after. Sooner or later, we must realize there is no station, no one place to arrive at once and for all. The true joy of life is the trip. The station is only a dream. It constantly outdistances us. It isn't the burdens of today that drive men mad. It is the regrets over yesterday and the fear of tomorrow. Regret and fear are twin thieves who rob us of today. So stop pacing the aisles and counting the miles. Instead, climb more mountains, eat more ice cream, go barefoot more often, swim more rivers, watch more sunsets, laugh more, cry less. Life must be lived as we go along. The station will come soon enough. The love of beauty is an essential part of all healthy human nature. It is a moral quality. The absence of it is not an assured ground of condemnation, but the presence of it is an invariable sign of goodness of heart. In proportion to the degree in which it is felt will probably be the degree in which nobleness and beauty of character will be attained. Natural beauty is an all-pervading presence. The universe is its temple. It unfolds into the numberless flowers of spring. It waves in the branches of trees and the green blades of grass. It haunts the depths of the earth and the sea. It gleams from the hues of the shell and the precious stone. And not only these minute objects, but the oceans, the mountains, the clouds, the stars, the rising and the setting sun, all overflow with beauty. This beauty is so precious and so congenial to our tenderest and noblest feelings that it is painful to think of the multitude of people living in the midst of it and yet remaining almost blind to it. All persons should seek to become acquainted with the beauty in nature. There is not a worm we tread upon, nor a leaf that dances merrily as it falls before the autumn winds, but calls for our study and admiration. The power to appreciate beauty not merely increases our sources of happiness, it enlarges our moral nature too. Beauty calms our restlessness and dispels our cares. Go into the fields or the woods. Spend a summer day by the sea or the mountains, and all your little perplexities and anxieties will vanish. Listen to sweet music, and your foolish fears and petty jealousies will pass away. The beauty of the world helps us to seek and find the beauty of goodness. The happy door. Happiness is like a pebble dropped into a pool to set in motion an ever-widening circle of ripples. As Stevenson has said, being happy is a duty. There is no exact definition of the word happiness. Happy people are happy for all sorts of reasons. The key is not wealth or physical well-being, since we find beggars, invalids, and so-called failures who are extremely happy. Being happy is a sort of unexpected dividend, but staying happy is an accomplishment, a triumph of soul and character. It is not selfish to strive for it. It is indeed a duty to ourselves and others. Being happy is like an infectious disease. It causes people to shrink away from the sufferer. He soon finds himself alone, miserable and embittered. There is, however, a cure so simple as to seem at first glance ridiculous. If you don't feel happy, pretend to be. It works. Before long, you will find that instead of repelling people, you attract them. You discover how deeply rewarding it is to be the center of wider and wider circles of goodwill. Then the make-believe becomes a reality. You possess the secret of peace of mind and can forget yourself in being of service to others. Being happy, once it is realized as a duty and established as a habit, opens doors into unimaginable gardens thronged with grateful friends. Born to win. Each human being is born as something new, something that never existed before. Each is born with the capacity to win at life. Each person has a unique way of seeing, hearing, touching, tasting, and thinking. Each has his or her own unique potentials, capabilities, and limitations. Each can be a significant, thinking, aware, and creative being, a productive person, a winner. The word winner and loser have many meanings. When we refer to a person as a winner, we do not mean one who makes someone else lose. To us, a winner is one who responds authentically by being credible, trustworthy, responsive, and genuine, both as an individual and as a member of a society. Winners do not dedicate their lives to a concept of what they imagine they should be. Rather, they are themselves, and as such, do not use their energy putting on a performance, maintaining pretense, and manipulating others. They are aware that there is a difference between being loving and acting loving, between being stupid and acting stupid, between being knowledgeable and acting knowledgeable. Winners do not need to hide behind the mask. Winners are not afraid to do their own thinking and to use their own knowledge. They can separate facts from opinions and don't pretend to have all the answers. They listen to others, evaluate what they say, but come to their own conclusions. Although winners can admire and respect other people, they are not totally defined, demolished, bound, or awed by them. Winners do not play helpless, nor do they play the blaming game. Instead, they assume responsibility for their own lives. They don't give others a false authority over them. Winners are their own bosses and know it. A winner's timing is right. Winners respond appropriately to the situation. Their responses are related to the message sent and preserve the significance, worth, well-being, and dignity of the people involved. Winners know that for everything there is a season, and for every activity a time. Although winners can freely enjoy themselves, they can also postpone enjoyment, can discipline themselves in the present to enhance their enjoyment in the future. Winners are not afraid to go after what he wants, but they do so in proper ways. Winners do not get their security by controlling others. They do not set themselves up to lose. A winner cares about the world and its peoples. A winner is not isolated from the general problems of society, but is concerned, compassionate, and committed to improving the quality of life. Even in the face of national and international adversity, a winner's self-image is not one of a powerless individual. A winner works to make the world a better place. Work and pleasure. To be really happy and really safe, one ought to have at least 2 or 3 hobbies, and they must all be real. It is no use starting late in life to say, I will take an interest in this or that. Such an attempt only aggravates the strain of mental effort. A man may acquire great knowledge of topics unconnected with his daily work and yet hardly get any benefit or relief. It is no use doing what you like. You have got to like what you do. Broadly speaking, human being may be divided into 3 classes: those who are toiled to death, those who are worried to death, and those who are bored to death. It is no use offering the manual laborer, tired out with the hard week's sweat and effort, the chance of playing a game of football or baseball on Saturday afternoon. It is no use inviting the politician or the professional or businessman who has been working or worrying about serious things for 6 days to work or worry about the trifling things at the weekend. It may also be said that rational, industrious, useful human beings are divided into 2 classes. First, those whose work is work and whose pleasure is pleasure. And secondly, those whose work and pleasure are one. Of these, the former are the majority. They have their compensations. The long hours in the office or the factory bring with them, as their reward, not only the means of sustenance, but a keen appetite for pleasure even in its simplest and most modest forms. But fortune's favored children belong to the second class. Their life is a natural harmony. For them, the working hours are never long enough. Each day is a holiday, and ordinary holidays, when they come, are grudged as enforced interruptions in an absorbing vacation. Yet to both classes, the need of an alternative outlook, of a change of atmosphere, of a diversion of effort is essential. Indeed, it may well be that those whose work is their pleasure are those who most need the means of banishing it at intervals from their minds. Mirror, mirror, what do I see? A loving person lives in a loving world. A hostile person lives in a hostile world. Everyone you meet is your mirror. Mirrors have a very particular function. They reflect the image in front of them. Just as a physical mirror serves as the vehicle to reflection, so do all of the people in our lives. When we see something beautiful, such as a flower garden, that garden serves as a reflection. In order to see the beauty in front of us, we must be able to see the beauty inside of ourselves. When we love someone, it's a reflection of loving ourselves. We have often heard things like, "I love how I am when I'm with that person." That simply translates into, "I'm able to love me when I love that other person." Oftentimes, when we meet someone new, we feel as though we click. Sometimes, it's as if we've known each other for a long time. That feeling can come from sharing similarities. Just as the mirror or other person can be a positive reflection, it is more likely that we'll notice it when it has a negative connotation. For example, it's easy to remember times when we have met someone we are not particularly crazy about. We may have some criticism in our mind about the person. This is especially true when we get to know someone with whom we would rather spend less time. Frequently, when we dislike qualities in other people, ironically, it's usually the mirror that's speaking to us. I began questioning myself further each time I encountered someone that I didn't particularly like. Each time, I asked myself, what is it about that person that I don't like? And then, is there something similar in me? In every instance, I could see a piece of that quality in me, and sometimes I had to really get very introspective. So what did that mean? It means that just as I can get annoyed or disturbed when I notice that aspect in someone else, I better re-examine my qualities and consider making some changes. Even if I'm not willing to make a drastic change, at least I consider how I might modify some of the things that I'm doing. At times, we meet someone new and feel distant, disconnected, or disgusted. Although we don't want to believe it, and it's not easy or desirable to look further, it can be a great learning lesson to figure out what part of the person is being reflected in you. It's simply just another way to create more self-awareness. On motes and beams. It is curious that our own offenses should seem so much less heinous than the offenses of others. I suppose the reason is that we know all the circumstances that have occasioned them, and so manage to excuse in ourselves what we cannot excuse in others. We turn our attention away from our own defects, and when we are forced by untoward events to consider them, find it easy to condole them. For all I know, we are right to do this. They are part of us, and we must accept the good and bad in ourselves together. But when we come to judge others, it is not by ourselves as we really are that we judge them, but by an image that we have formed of ourselves, from which we have left out everything that offends our vanity or would discredit us in the eyes of the world. To take a trivial instance, how scornful we are when we catch someone out telling a lie. But who can say that he has never told not one but 100? There is not much to choose between men. They are all a hodgepodge of greatness and littleness, of virtue and vice, of nobility and baseness. Some have more strength of character or more opportunity, and so in one direction or another give their instincts freer play, but potentially they are the same. For my part, I do not think I am any better or any worse than most people, but I know that if I set down every action in my life and every thought that has crossed my mind, the world would consider me a monster of depravity. The knowledge that these reveries are common to all men should inspire one with tolerance to oneself as well as to others. It is well also if they enable us to look upon our fellows, even the most eminent and respectable, with humor, and if they lead us to take ourselves not too seriously. An October sunrise. I was up the next morning before the October sunrise and away through the wild and the woodland. The rising of the sun was noble in the cold and warmth of it. And peeping down the spread of light, he raised his shoulder heavily over the edge of green mountain and wavering length of upland. Beneath his gaze, the dew-fox dipped and crept to the hollow places. Then stole away in line and column, holding skirts and clinging subtly at the sheltering corners where rock hung over grassland, while the brave lines of the hills came forth, one beyond other gliding. The woods arose in folds like drapery of awakened mountains, stately with a depth of awe and a memory of the tempests. Autumn's mellow hand was upon them as they owned already, touched with gold and red and olive, and their joy towards the sun was less to a bridegroom than a father. Yet, before the floating impress of the woods could clear itself, suddenly the gladsome light leaped over hill and valley, casting amber, blue, and purple, and a tint of rich red rose, according to the scene they lit on, and the curtain flung around, yet o'er-like dispelling fear and the cloven hoof of darkness, all on the wings of hope, advancing and proclaiming, God is here. Then life and joy sprang reassured from every crouching hollow. Every flower and bud and bird had a fluttering sense of them, and all the flashing of God's gaze merged into soft beneficence. So perhaps shall break upon us that eternal morning, when crag and chasm shall be no more, neither hill and valley, nor great unvintaged ocean, but all things shall arise and shine in the light of the Father's countenance, because itself is risen. To be or not to be? To be or not to be? Outside the Bible, these 6 words are the most famous in all the literature of the world. They were spoken by Hamlet when he was thinking aloud, and they are the most famous words in Shakespeare because Hamlet was speaking not only for himself, but also for every thinking man and woman. To be or not to be, to live or not to live richly and abundantly and eagerly, or to live dully and meanly and scarcely. A philosopher once wanted to know whether he was alive or not, which is a good question for everyone to put to himself occasionally. He answered it by saying, "I think, therefore I am." But the best definition of existence I ever saw was one given by another philosopher who said, "To be is to be in relations." If this is true, then the more relations a living thing has, the more it is alive. To live abundantly means simply to increase the range and intensity of our relations. Unfortunately, we are so constituted that we get to love our routine. But apart from our regular occupation, how much are we alive? If you are interested only in your regular occupation, you are alive only to that extent. So far as other things are concerned, poetry and prose, music, pictures, sports, unselfish friendships, politics, international affairs, you are dead. Contrariwise, it is true that every time you acquire a new interest, even more, a new accomplishment, you increase your power of life. No one who is deeply interested in a large variety of subjects can remain unhappy. The real pessimist is the person who has lost interest. Bacon said that a man dies as often as he loses a friend. But we gain new life by contacts, new friends. What is supremely true of living objects is no less true of ideas, which are also alive. Where your thoughts are, there will your life be also. If your thoughts are confined only to your business, only to your physical welfare, only to the narrow circle of the town in which you live, then you live in a narrow, circumscribed life. But if you are interested in what is going on in China, then you are living in China. If you are interested in the characters of a good novel, then you are living with those highly interesting people. If you listen intently to fine music, you are away from your immediate surroundings and living in a world of passion and imagination. To be or not to be, to live intensely and richly, or merely to exist, that depends on ourselves. Let's widen and intensify our relations. While we live, let us live. Gettysburg Address. 77 years ago, our fathers brought forth upon this continent a new nation, conceived in liberty and dedicated to the proposition that all men are created equal. Now, we are engaged in a great civil war, testing whether that nation or any nation so conceived and so dedicated can long endure. We are met on a great battlefield of that war. We have come to dedicate a portion of that field as a final resting place for those who here give their lives that that nation might live. It is altogether fitting and proper that we should do this. But in a larger sense, we cannot dedicate, we cannot consecrate, we cannot hallow this ground. The brave men, living and dead, who struggled here, have consecrated it far above our poor power to add or detract. The world will little note, nor long remember what we say here, but it can never forget what they did here. It is for us, the living, rather, to be dedicated here to the unfinished work which they who fought here have thus far so nobly advanced. It is rather for us to be here dedicated to the great task remaining before us, that from these honored dead we take increased devotion to that cause for which they gave the last full measure of devotion, that we here highly resolve that these dead shall not have died in vain, that this nation under God shall have a new birth of freedom, and that government of the people, by the people, and for the people shall not perish from the earth. First Inaugural Address. We observe today not a victory of party, but a celebration of freedom, symbolizing an end as well as a beginning, signifying renewal as well as change. For I have sworn before you and Almighty God the same solemn oath our forebears prescribed nearly a century and 3/4 ago. In your hands, my fellow citizens, more than in mine, will rest the final success or failure of our course. Since this country was founded, each generation of Americans has been summoned to give testimony to its national loyalty. The graves of young Americans who answered the call to service surround the globe. Now the trumpet summons us again, not as a call to bear arms, though arms we need, not as a call to battle, though embattled we are, but a call to bear the burden of a long twilight struggle, year in and year out, rejoicing in hope, patient in tribulation, a struggle against the common enemies of man, tyranny, poverty, disease, and war itself. Can we forge against these enemies a grand and global alliance, north and south, east and west, that can assure a more fruitful life for all mankind? Will you join in that historic effort? In the long history of the world, only a few generations have been granted the role of defending freedom in its hour of maximum danger. I do not shrink from this responsibility. I welcome it. I do not believe that any of us would exchange places with any other people or any other generation. The energy, the faith, the devotion which we bring to this endeavor will light our country and all who serve it. And the glow from that fire can truly light the world. And so, my fellow Americans, ask not what your country can do for you, ask what you can do for your country. My fellow citizens of the world, ask not what America will do for you, but what together we can do for the freedom of man. Finally, whether you are citizens of America or citizens of the world, ask of us here the same high standards of strength and sacrifice which we ask of you. With a good conscience, our only sure reward, with history the final judge of our deeds, let us go forth to lead the land we love, asking His blessing and His help, but knowing that here on earth, God's work must truly be our own.